Hi, and welcome to Food for the Journey, a weekly program of St. Paul's Lutheran Church in Aberdeen, Maryland. I'm Pastor Rob Blizzard, and I'm glad that you could join us. Today is the 9th of June, 2022, and we are continuing our survey through the Ten Commandments. Ten Commandments are just a few verses of Scripture, yet they have shaped the civilization that we live in and all through the ages. The Ten Commandments are given to us from the first 5 books of Moses, the Pentateuch, which is the oldest part of the Bible. So we're looking at words that are 3,000, 3,500, 4,000 years old, and yet they still speak to us. They are so important, so critical, and yet, we've learned them in Sunday school when we were kids or confirmands, and we may not have thought that much about them since. Today we're looking at the Fifth Commandment according to the Lutheran numbering system of commandments, and I will read it. The book of Exodus chapter 20 records the Ten Commandments, as does the book of Deuteronomy. I'm reading from Exodus chapter 20 verse 13. Here you go. You ready? Here we go. Here it is. Do not murder. There you go. When you're looking to memorize verses of the Bible, there's one. It's only 3 words. Do not murder. End of discussion. I guess the people in the who wrote the Ten Commandments way back when thought, well, that'll do the job. No murder. Don't murder. And it's important for us to distinguish that there are several words for taking of life in Hebrew as there are in English. And murder is one word. They have a word for murder. They also have a word for killing. And just as in our culture, in our language, there's a distinction between killing and murder, so it also was in the Hebrew mind. And it's important for us to remember that, because in the Bible it talks about taking of life, killing, for punishment for a crime. The Bible talks about some transgressions that if charges are brought and they are evaluated and adjudicated according to a civil or a legal authority, that a punishment of death might be warranted. And that's not murder, that's killing, just as in our society. The Bible also talks about accidental deaths. We get into a car accident, there might be a death, but it's an accident, it's not murder. And there's also self-defense. If someone is trying to kill me and I take that person's life, that's not murder either. So just as in our culture there are degrees of killing, of which murder is the worst, so it is in the Hebrew Bible. And murder would be a taking of life that is wanton, out of anger or out of revenge, or for money, or for pleasure, or hatred. All of these things are murder. They're taking of life purposefully outside of some sort of a legal judicial process. And that's prohibited, just as it is in our culture. Now, it's important for us to realize that, just because we haven't actually committed murder, and I haven't, I'm sure you haven't either, that doesn't mean we're off the hook. It doesn't mean we can just check this on the Ten Commandments list and move on to the next one, which is do not steal. There are a lot of implications for this, and commentators have noted that. Martin Luther did, certainly, but one of the commentators on this was Jesus Christ himself. Jesus addressed this in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 5. Let's take a look at what Jesus says about this. Chapter 5, verse 21. You have heard that it was said to those who lived long ago, don't commit murder. And all who commit murder will be in danger of judgment. But I say to you that everyone who is angry with their brother or sister will be in danger of judgment. If they say to their brother or sister, "You idiot," They will be in danger of being condemned by the governing council. And if they say, "You fool," they will be in danger of a fiery hell. Calling somebody a fool, you're in danger of the fiery hell. Jesus is talking very seriously, doesn't he? He doesn't use that language very often. You're in danger of the fiery hell because you call somebody a fool. You're in danger of being brought up on charges by the governing council because you call somebody an idiot. Who of us is not guilty as charged? Whenever I'm driving, I'm guilty as charged multiple times, especially when I'm on Pulaski Highway. But that's another story. So, what is Jesus getting at? What Jesus is telling us is that it's not only the act of actual taking of life that's called murder. It's also murderous thoughts that we allow to dwell in our hearts and in our minds that are expressed through murderous language. You idiot, you fool. Because, calling somebody an idiot or a fool is a way to harm them. And that's really what "thou shalt not murder" is all about. We shall not harm someone by the taking of the life, but Jesus is saying even by harming them psychologically or emotionally. Because someone calls me an idiot, that can really hurt. And somebody calls me a fool, that can be harmful too. So Jesus is saying even in those things, you are committing a murder. We know from psychology that children who have been exposed to ridicule and insults, and people who themselves have, even in their adult life, been exposed to ridicule and insult, they can have very low self-esteem. They can think worse of themselves, so that we know that sticks and stones may break my bones, according to the old saying, but words can never harm me. Psychologists say, no, that's not true. Words can be very harmful indeed. And Jesus is telling us that. So he's saying, watch out for your murderous words. Watch out for your harming other people, certainly with your words, but also, physically. Violence against other people out of anger, out of frustration, for whatever reason, it's murderous. It's murderous. So we can tell Jesus, what are we supposed to do with these murderous thoughts that we have? And calling somebody a jerk or a fool can be murderous. I've got these murderous thoughts in my mind. What do I do with them? Well, the Bible gives us some good answers. Jesus says in Matthew that if you have something against somebody, go and talk to him. Try to work it out. Don't let the anger steep. And Paul says that too. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. If you have anger, try to work it out. And sometimes that's possible. Sometimes people will meet you halfway and you can find some resolution. Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes people don't want to work it out, and you have nowhere to put your anger. And that's when we have to look deep inside. That's when we have to pray to God. We have to pray to God and say, God, I've got these murderous thoughts in my mind. I've got this anger. I've got these negative thoughts. I want to kill him. I want to kill her. What do I do with them? Well, we can pray to God. We can say, God, can you help me? Can you help me to deal with this in a constructive way? And sometimes we may have to come to some sort of peace without making an actual resolution with the people. They may have moved away. We might have moved away. The people that we're angry with might have died. We just might have to come to some sort of accommodation, and God can help us to come to some sort of peace with that. Martin Luther looked at this commandment, the "thou shalt not murder," and he said that it's certainly true, all the things we mentioned, but also the opposite is true. If we are commanded not to murder, the opposite of that is a commandment in the positive, that we are then to. We are to refrain from murder, but we are to go ahead and help people with their lives. We are to love our neighbor in such a way that we promote their lives in good ways. He Martin Luther refers to how Jesus taught in Matthew 25, the great parable of the goats and the sheeps, how people were brought in and judged according to how well they treated the least among them. When did we see you hungry, Lord, and not give you food? He said, when you saw it in the least of these. When did we see you naked and not clothe you? Well, when you saw it to the least of these, said Jesus. Martin Luther says, because of that, the positive opposite implication of thou shalt not murder is you shall promote life. And therefore, if we have the means to do so, when we see suffering, when we see people who are in danger of losing their lives, we are to act. So if I see somebody who is starving to death and I have the ability to help them and I don't help them, I have committed murder by hastening that person's death. When I see them homeless and I don't do anything, and I have the ability to do something, I don't do anything, I have caused their death through exposure or whatever. Thou shalt not murder. Do not murder. It's one of the simplest commandments, but what we see, as with all of them, that the deeper we look, the more we have insights and direction for how to live our lives as full God's people. Live fully in God's reign. So I hope that this has been instructive for you. I pray that you will join us next week when we looked at the next commandment, the sixth commandment, you shall not steal. That's a biggie. Hope you will join me. May God bless you richly this week. Goodbye.